Okay, guys, welcome back to Formula One, and here we go. But some dramatic news here. Now, you'll have to excuse me, lads. My lovely, milky, pasty legs are on display here today, I know, but I just got completely caught in a thunderstorm of rain here. Oh, dear Lord. So I had to revert to putting my shorts on. So you're going to have to just brace for impact, ladies and gentlemen. Brace for impact when you're looking at my pasty, beautiful legs today. So, before we get into actually Singapore, before we talk about any downforce, we don't get too complicated anyway, but just what we're going to touch, just barely touch it. We need to talk about Lewis Hamilton. Now, no Ferrari politics, not his lap times, not contract gossip. The poor guy and his dog. The poor guy and his best friend. Now, in many ways, this has been capturing major headlines across the world this week. And it's shaken the world, the F1 world, in a way I think people outside this bubble don't kind of understand. Now, I'll tell you why I can relate to this guy as an ex-racing driver. And I'm not even a Hamilton fan. I've had plenty of digs at him over the years. I've stood up for him over the years because I'll always be fair. But what just happened, it's not about racing. It's about, this is life. It's about loneliness. It's about losing your anchor when you're floating through the madness of being a racing driver. And I'm not just talking about Formula 1, guys. I'm talking about karting, Formula 4, 3, 2, and Formula 1. And, you know, I'll get into why I can relate to him now. Roscoe wasn't just a dog for him. He wasn't some family pet where you're the kid in the house patting the head while mum and dad feed it. You know, Roscoe was Hamilton's dog. His responsibility. His son, in many ways. And Hamilton, living out of hotels, living out of his private jet, and I know, you don't have much sympathy for a guy who's got private jets. So, believe me, I get that, all right? We can't have too much sympathy for a guy who's got his own private jet flying around the place. But at the end of the day, the guy's bloody human. He goes to hotels. He stays there. He goes to hotel, track, hotel, track, hotel, track, hotel, track. And this is where I come in, because this is exactly what I've gone through in my life, where people think racing is a glamorous thing. It's, the supermodels, the champagne, the casinos, the nightclubs, the booze, they all think this. But no one gets how hard it is to be a racing driver. Even when I was in Formula Ford, okay, guys? That's the starting levels of racing cars now, not karts. And even I was eating the right food, training every day, going to bed early, had to be in bed early, getting as much rest as sleep as I possibly could, going from the track to the hotel, the track back to the hotel, maybe go out for dinner. And then guess what? Back to the track, and you heard it, straight to the hotel again. That's what you're doing. The only time you can have a breather is if you've got a weekend off. If you race on a Sunday and there's a 2-week break, you can go on the piss maybe on the Sunday night, right? Because you still have got that week to, you're very fit anyway, and you've got that week to just recover. Now, the F1 boys, they are superbly fit, because you do have to put that amount of effort in when you're at that level. They're so superbly fit that they probably might have some booze on the Sunday night, have a race the next weekend. All right? But, again, it just depends on what happens. So, okay. What I'm trying to say here is, for me back in the racing days, I used to have a portable DVD player. Now, I'm talking back in the days where it was a 3-inch screen, and it was the very first ones that came out, and you had a CD, okay, a DVD, because it was a DVD player. You had a CD, and you put it in and press play. So, and most of the time, it barely worked anyway. It was always scratched, or it was pausing, or even if you went over a bump in the car, it would start to skip beats. This is what we're talking back in the day. And that's what I had. And it sounds ridiculous, but because you're in such a cocoon for the whole race weekend, and many times you're on your own. You're not around friends, you're not around family, because your family might come in at the weekend but you're there since Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Chances are you're on your own. Okay? No, maybe you got a wife, girlfriend, great. But there's a lot of alone time. And for me, that was my escape. I'd go to the hotel, stay the night, watch my DVD. I had about 15 movies on CD, and that was all I could get at the time, unfortunately. But still, I'd go from the track back to my hotel, and I'd be looking forward to going back to my anchor. And I know this might sound crazy for people, but then for anybody that's listening and you've traveled long distances for a lot of years, Billy, I think you probably understand what I'm saying here. I'm very confident that you do. You always need that escape. And believe me, when you're in that cocoon, you will look for things to escape. Now, I'm a big movie guy anyway, and I got lucky with that CD player. But, believe me, you'll find a way to just unwind for the night. Get away from it all, like a little mini holiday for the night. And I can't even imagine what Lewis Hamilton is going through, because, this isn't a DVD 3-inch DVD player here on my lap. This is like a human being. This is like his dog. It was like another person with him. I honestly, I've never been a Hamilton fan, and I'll say it again. But I tell you, man, my heart goes out to the guy, because I know what it's like being on the lonely road of racing. And I've no doubt there's many people watching this or listening to this, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And to lose a dog, I've no doubt there's people listening to this that you've lost a dog, and you know how horrendous it is. It's just amplified up a hell of a lot more when you're out there on the road and you're on your own. So honestly, I don't think I've ever blown a kiss for on behalf of Lewis Hamilton here, but honestly, my heart goes out to you, buddy. I'm almost tearing up for the guy, I have to say, because he's going to find it insanely hard for a couple of weeks. Now, he'll be able to get in the car and perform, he will, right? But, Jesus.
Walsh running the Irish green, and look at the move he's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front, what a move from 5th all the way to the lead in lap 1.
Walsh takes win number 2.
Peter. Walsh. Okay, lads, so let's talk about the track itself, Singapore. Now, this is the furnace. This is the street fight. This is the race that can break cars, break drivers, break minds. Now, I spoke about this for Monza only recently, that you can have, it was only two races ago, that when you're racing, especially at somewhere like Monza, what you'll find is the cars are going at such high speed for such a lengthy time that if there's any sort of vulnerability in these cars, that somewhere like Monza will start to, I suppose, poke the issue, and it can bring on problems. Now, it mightn't bring it on at Monza itself, but it can be the start of something, like an underlying condition. Your immune system's down, and all of a sudden, 2 weeks you're absolutely fine, but then all of a sudden Bob drops along, and he shakes your hand, and he's got the flu, and bang, you come down with the flu the next day. It's just something you need to push the car over the edge. Now, okay, excuse me. We didn't see anything happen at Monza where engine wear was huge, but it could be the start. And now, if there is any cracks in any of their cars, Singapore, it's insanely humid, insanely hot, definitely the hottest Grand Prix that they're going to go to this year. And because they're driving for I think it's actually 2 hours, which is insane. It's a lot to going through. And the amount of weight they lose, unbelievable. But not just for the drivers, the cars itself. The cars, because if there's any cracks in their chassis, their engine, from Monza or even Baku, now you could start seeing cars crumble. This can be the pushing it over the cliff. And because you've got the temperature, the humidity, engine wear is going to be blasting hot, and you've got the bumps. So the bumps can, again, just rattle the car, where if there's any little touch of thing, crack, it can come on here. Now, the Formula 1 guys, their technology these days is amazing, so they could probably catch it. But what if you're in the race? Well, you can't just come in and fix your engine midway through the race and then mosey on off again. Well, that ain't going to happen, honey. That is not going to happen. So, we'll see, guys. We'll see. Singapore has been a graveyard for a lot of cars. I want to talk Max Verstappen, the guy who's dominated seasons, won 4 world titles back to back. He's never conquered Singapore. Not once. Now, here's a weird thing. Every time they've rolled in, the bumps, the heat, the unforgiving walls have exposed Red Bull's weaknesses. Now, Adrian Newey left an unbelievably insane car. Now, he's gone. Definitely, that car has been played around with, changed, adjusted. And it's so weird, the pattern of racing in general, even, and I'm talking karts all the way up to Formula 1, that you can have a car like the Red Bull that dominated for 4 years, do insanely well, but then you go to that one track and the car is absolutely nowhere. Verstappen has never had a good result in Singapore. It's too bumpy for that Red Bull car. The car gets just whacked around the place. It's jittering and jolting. It's all over. It's all over the place. And it absolutely kills the Red Bull. But here's the thing. And I've seen this so many times, I can't even explain it. I've seen this where our car will dominate. Then they'll go to a certain track, and then they're nowhere. Just like the Red Bull. However, Adrian Newey is left now. And now, what you can have is a situation where now, even though they're not dominating now anymore, they can go to the places that they were weak, and they can be strong. Like they were strong in Baku. They were strong in Monza. That wasn't the Red Bull car of years ago. Yes, they were still really bloody lightning quick there. But they didn't have this grandstand special amazing engine speed, and they just absolutely obliterated everybody. But now they do. They've changed something. So perhaps this could be Max Verstappen's chance to actually have a good time at Singapore. I don't think so, because it's not an engine speed track. It's very bumpy. But we'll see. The question is, does Singapore flip the script now for Red Bull and Verstappen? It's going to be very interesting to find out. But let's remember why Singapore is brutal, okay? It's the longest race on the calendar. 2 hours in 30-degree plus heat. That's insane, lads. With humidity, make you feel like you're drowning in your own sweat. I mean, the guys get thrown into ice bins after every session. They're so wrecked. They have to keep as cool as possible. You know, safety cars are, well, almost guaranteed. The track is just bumpy, narrow, it's twisty. It's got sections where you need raw top-end power, not like Monza or Baku. But for Red Bull in the past, the bumps are destroying it. Suspension setup, built for precision. And let's not forget the ripple effect. All heavy loads on engines. You can run hard there, no problem. But if those invisible cracks show up later... And just to throw a spanner in the works, lads, before we move on here, you got 3 sprint races still coming. 3 more sprints. That's more engine wear. And that's more stress, more heat cycles, more mileage. Teams can swap engines, but there's a penalty. Gearboxes, you know, Singapore is where those little hidden weaknesses come to the surface. And, you know, the stakes are high here. Piastri, leading but wobbling. Norris, desperate for redemption, I think, at this stage after what happened in Baku. Verstappen, staring down the ghost of Singapore. He still has a chance. Every one of them knows this race. could kind of make or break the season. And I'm saying it a bit gently, kind of, right? But this really, if Red Bull can dominate this weekend and Piastri and Norris have 2 DNFs, it seriously puts pressure on. You know, I mean, guys, wouldn't you love it? Picture, you know, Verstappen rolling into Singapore with the memories of years of failure. The crowd sweating in the heat, the lights bouncing off the walls, the bumps like shaking the car like a jackhammer. You know, it's the test. Does Red Bull finally slay the dragon? Do they get rid of that gowl on their back? Or do the ghosts return, you know? It's not just Red Bull. McLaren could crack. Ferrari under pressure. They could rise. If Verstappen wins here, and the 2 McLaren boys, if they don't finish, they're going to get a lot of confidence, and especially going into Vegas where the engine speed's going to be high, and I think Verstappen's going to be very, very solid there. Now let's look at the championship points. Now, all right, hand in the cookie jar, you got me. 2 races ago, I was pretty much saying championship done. Okay? I was still saying there's a chance, but I was thinking, no, Piastri, man, he's too on the ball. He's too on the ball. And that was when we were back at Monza. But wow, have things changed, you know? If I didn't have that speed bump for Piastri at Monza, you know, after Monza, I would have been saying, pack your bags, boys, war's over, it's over, job done. Piastri, he's got this. It's over. But it ain't over, lads. And I'm even going to say it. There's 7 races to go, 3 sprint races. And remember, you score 8 points for a win in a sprint race. And what if Verstappen takes 1 win? The 2 McLaren boys don't finish. Plus, throw in 1 sprint race where Verstappen wins. No. Imagine Verstappen wins the next 3 sprint races and the 2 boys don't finish, or they have some incidences, or they're 4th or 5th, and just Verstappen keeps knocking up the points. There's so many ways. There's so many ways this could go. Now let's break this down, lads. Piastri, he's not been cracking under the pressure, not in the traditional sense, but this isn't the, oh, I'm being haunted, kind of buckling under the pressure scenario. No. What we saw in Baku, it was different. He fell asleep at the wheel. He got too cozy. I think that's exactly what happened here. This wasn't Norris and Piastri neck and neck or 1 or 2 points in it and they were under pressure. And, you know, Piastri suddenly felt the immense pressure and the reality of the championship coming down to this. No, he had a cushion. All right? If they were neck and neck on points or close, I would be saying, okay, he kind of buckled under the pressure here, lads. Oh, God, I can't believe this has happened. Now, you could still put it down to, look, he just had a bad race. And look, people do, right? Because it's not the championship decider yet. But it's the other way. It's the other way. Piastri has a lead. I think he's the type of guy that needs the fight. He needs the challenge. He wants to be the guy in second position coming up to the last race. And he has got to go all out to get it. You know what I mean? I think he prefers to attack, not defend. And there's plenty of people, like, if you're listening, what kind of person are you? Are you that type of person that you prefer to fight for every inch? You know, you perform better when you're on the offense, not defense. And then maybe you're the other way around. Are you the defensive person instead of attack? Like, David Coulthard was a great example of that. Coulthard was a type of driver that he was never winning races, really, okay? He's won a few, but he just couldn't gain ground. But if he got himself into a position where he was in the lead, he grew confidence and he actually drove better in the car than he ever would. He was just one of those guys. Giving him the lead gave him the confidence to actually get a bit more out of the car. Now, of course, the problem is you need to be faster. You need to be flat out anyway to get in the lead. But if he got into a situation where he could get into the lead, he then rose to the occasion and got better. So there is people out there that have these scenarios, you know? And then other people the other way around. Or then you got people who actually can perform on both positions. Here's where it does get juicy. Now, Verstappen, he's got nothing to prove to anyone out there in the world. And I don't care who you are. He has 4 world championships. He's done it, been there, worn the t-shirt, and he's got nothing, like 0.00% of anything to prove to anyone. And he's not the kid with everything to lose. He's not the kid with everything to lose. If Red Bull want this championship, they can't afford to have a bad race. Not one DNF, not one engine blowout, not a flat tire. You know, so in many ways, Verstappen's got nothing to lose, but the team have got everything to lose. One engine blowout. Red Bull have to be on the top of their game for the rest of the 7 races and the 3 sprint races that they cannot afford. They just cannot afford one error. Not one. Because if they have any way of leading this, you know, they don't have a cushion. They don't have, like Verstappen, you know, 3 race wins in hand. Oh, well, look, you know, we had an engine blowout. Oh, well, look, it's okay. We still got a 50-point lead. There's no comfort here. So I think they'll enjoy this the challenge, you know, because it does come with pressure, but it's a different type of pressure now. You've got nothing to lose, you know, and Verstappen's not going to feel that pressure of, oh, I got to prove myself again. Get that, because I mean I'm seeing stories, guys. I'm seeing articles, headlines where, oh, well, Verstappen, he's really got to prove himself now because Adrian Newey and Christian Horner are gone. Get the not a hope in hell. Absolute bollocks talk. Today we're not even doing a, you know, breaking the you might be thinking, well, normally I break down the track when I show you the most important corner, and I've actually thought about this in detail, and I'm not going to show you that today. And you know why? Because Singapore, the more I think about Singapore as I go, the more I think of it's such an inconsistent beast that there is not really an important corner, because the way the cars react, the humidity, 1 minute it could be turn 1 and you need to get out of that turn 1 because there's sand and dust over those bumps and this and that and the curve. So it all kind of dramatically changes, which I kind of love doing. I love seeing. So we're not going to go through that today, because turn 5 could be the most important corner now coming up, because your car's not going anywhere. 4 laps later, you could have turn 12 being the most important corner. So that's what we love. It's unpredictable. Oh, lads, let's wrap it up for today. Here we are. Piastri still leads. Norris still hoping, dreaming. I don't blame him. Verstappen, well, he's coming. You know, he doesn't need mistakes every weekend. Just maybe a bad pit stop here and there. Now, I would still consider that a mistake. Like I said, you know, at worst, a bad pit stop. So that's for Red Bull. But Piastri and Norris, well, the championship isn't dead, lads. It's far from it. It's far from it. And Max Verstappen, could he be the man to take this? We're going to see. Now I'm going to do a prediction. I'm going to go, you know what? I don't think this is going to happen. But you know something? I'm going to go for it anyway. Because actually, the way we did talk about it, maybe that is gnawing at me. I'm going to go for Max Verstappen for the win and the 2 Ferraris, 2nd and 3rd. You might think I'm out of my absolute mind. I'm just experimenting here. I'm just throwing in wild cards here for a bit of a laugh too. But maybe it could work. What do you think? We'll see you after the weekend.
Walsh running the Irish green, and look at the move he's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front. What a move from 5th all the way to the lead in lap 1.
Walsh takes win number 2.
Peter. Walsh.